Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla. Let's go over the market, the first day of the month as well, being March. So let's talk about what we're seeing on the charts and what we can expect moving forward for the essentially rest of the month. So I guess the start and the rest of the month. But anyway, let's just get into it. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. It does help a lot. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section on YouTube is live. The link is down below if you're interested for $2.99 a month, where I post intraday thoughts, posts, updates, technical analysis, options flow, etc. for Tesla and sometimes other stocks as well. So again, link below in the description of this video. Would love to have you there. But let's jump right into it. Tesla closing the day. I'm so used to saying unfortunately. Fortunately, in this case, in the slightly green, 0.38% on the day. Unfortunately, though, compared to the market absolutely ripping today. A phenomenal 1.5% day for QQQ, and even like a respectable 1% for the SPY. A pretty powerful face ripper of a day, even after all this. Just the market just cannot be stopped. Like, it's getting kind of ridiculous at this point. But anyone trying to short this market has been just getting eaten alive. Now, I do think that this market is getting pretty darn close to at least some level of toppiness, if that makes sense, for not a crash necessarily or anything, maybe, who knows, but at least a cool off. But I'm definitely not going to be someone that thinks he's smarter than the market and just try constantly shorting this market thinking that I'm, going to time it perfectly. So I'm just letting it ride. I'm just letting it ride, just slowly selling cash secured puts on my stonks and letting it do its thing. So unfortunately, though, Tesla, could be better, honestly. However, it also could be worse. So we ended up, pretty much bouncing off of exactly that. Again, for the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth time now, almost in a row, off this 198-ish level. At this time, I actually did buy the dip a little bit late, about our 199, and then I sold a little too early, unfortunately. But nonetheless, I did buy this dip this time, made some money on that as well. And once again, look at this. Remember how I said yesterday, you buy 198-ish and you sell 204, 205? Well, we pretty much came down to exactly 198.5 down here. And then we pretty much topped out at exactly 204.5 right here. So it's just sometimes really that simple. Now, naturally, it's not going to be like this forever. And I think Tesla will break one of these levels soon, right? Whether it's, pretty much the high over here since this consolidation, which is about 205.5, we'll say, to the low of this consolidation, which is pretty much below 198. One of these levels will break. Maybe even next week. But if we don't look over on the daily, sorry, not the daily, I think it was the 4-hour, maybe it was 65-minute. There we go, 65-minute. Technically, if you look at it from this perspective, where we never really closed any candles below the yellow lines that I showcase here on the 65-minute chart, this suggests that, there could still be more time of consolidation. Like, we don't necessarily have to break out just yet. We can still continue to zigzag pretty much within this level for potentially a while still, like potentially even most of next week. Like, that's not completely impossible, and that's going to frustrate a lot of people because a lot of people are buying puts, buying calls, right, trying to pretty much predict where it's going to go next overall out of this little congestion zone of about $4 or $5 or so, like about $5 we'll say, right? And the market just going to frustrate them as much as possible. So that's a possibility still. I'm not saying it's not, but again, the main thing I'm looking at right now, essentially on the 15-minute charts where I'm liking to look at it right now, it's just a break out of one of these levels. Now, figuring out where that can go next is obviously the main, the $1,000,000 question, right? Nobody knows for sure. And the thing that makes it difficult here is the fact that there's a lot of contradicting things in play, essentially, right, for bulls and bears, right? And there's bullish things here, but there's bearish things here, and they're definitely contradicting each other. So first and foremost, right, as we've been consolidating here, first we have another inside day, which is pretty surprising, right? We have not crossed below yesterday's lows. Yesterday's low was at what? Yesterday's low was at, I'm kind of blocking it here, 198.45. Today was 198.50. So actually pretty much we actually did go slightly lower by barely anything, like 0.05. So hardly anything at all, I believe, right? Yeah, pretty much not much lower whatsoever. Pretty much the exact same low, but we did set a lower high. That's a little bit concerning, but not the worst thing in the world. We did close above 200. We did close above yesterday's close, which is great. RSI is actually not looking too bad here, right? As we're consolidating here, doing literally nothing. RSI is slowly peeking its way upwards, right? It's slowly moving upwards. It's slowly going higher, which is not a bad sign. We're holding the 21 EMA, not a bad sign. So there are definitely some nice reasons to be bullish here potentially, right? And we're just at the next plateau. For instance, if we go to the 65-minute chart, right? We went sideways here, broke above. Then we kind of went sideways a little bit higher, broke above. Now we're going sideways a little bit higher. Do we break above again? Obviously, we can't just continue to do this literally forever and ever and ever and ever and just keep going up and up and up and up and up, sideways up, right? Obviously, at some point, that trend will end. Doesn't mean it has to be now, though, right? So those, in my opinion, are like the bullish aspects, right? There are definitely some nice things to see here, right? With the 21 EMA hold as well, which is this yellow line right here. So it's good, right? I do like the fact that it's doing that, which is why I'm still, again, if I absolutely had to pick a direction, I'd pick bullish, but it's like, again, 55, 45, 55% bullish, 45% bearish. Is the way I look at it right now. Again, I did sell my shares. I don't have any shares, but I did open up fresh cash secured puts for next week at 200 and 197.5, right? So I'm just going to let those ride. If I get, if I'm forced to buy, that's not a problem because again, I have literally no position right now other than in terms of literal shares. And I'll just go ahead and sell calls against them, especially if it's starting to look weak. Longer data calls as we just most likely go down here and consolidate once again, potentially even make a lower low, which I will of course be buying that dip. But the bearish aspect is this. Well, I mean, the most obvious one by far is the fact that, well, first of all, we're lowering in volume. As we're consolidating here, we're definitely going down in volume, which isn't necessarily bearish or bullish here. I will admit that's not really bearish or bullish. All that means is the fact that as we're consolidating here, we're pretty much getting ready for the next move. And I do think once we pick a move and once we break one of those levels, like 205.5 and pretty much 198, I do believe we'll get like potentially like a 5% to move to that respective direction. I think that's a possibility. Now, as I was saying, the bearish aspects are, well, the most obvious one by far, and it's not, you don't want to take it lightly, I guess is what I'm trying to say, is, well, we have a potential bearish wedge, which is the yellow and the red line, like I said, or bearish flag, right? People that aren't aware, right? This is essentially what it looks like, right? You have the flag or wedge or whatever, doesn't matter. The point is you have a massive fall, you have a consolidation upwards where you make higher highs, higher lows, roughly. And that's kind of what we're doing right now. And then you fall down even lower. And that's kind of what we're doing right now, right? Where we came down and now we're essentially started setting. Where is the thing? All right. From down here, we started setting, we set this low here, then we set a higher high here. Then we set essentially what looked to be a higher low here. And now we're setting a new higher high, potentially setting now a lower or a higher low. So we're setting higher highs, higher lows. But at some point, this will fall, at least in the sense of a bear flag, right? Kind of exactly the way it's in this picture, for instance, right? You come down and then you start setting higher lows, higher highs until eventually you break down out of the bear flag. And that's potentially what can still happen here. If we lose the 21 EMA, if we lose the bottom of the bear flag, the channel, which pretty much, let's say, is Monday, will be around 197 now. So, it's an ascending channel, right? Ascending wedge, ascending channel, whatever. The bottom red line is ascending. So that's important to understand. If we break down below that, well, things might start looking a little bit ugly for the bulls and obviously great for the bears. So that's probably by far the most obvious thing I would personally be looking at here that can potentially be bearish, but it's a pretty big one. So keep that in mind. It's definitely a pretty big one. So honestly, those are, did I close? I think I closed Cheddar Flow back. So let me go and open up Cheddar Flow. So option flow this morning, by the way, was extremely unusual in the sense that it was, my cat is mewing. I don't know if you guys can hear her. It was very, very slow. The morning option flow was extremely slow. There was almost no option flow in the morning for the vast majority of it. The only thing that was really noteworthy was this 1.6 million call. That was a 120 call. So it's very much in the money for April 19th. And then after that, there's really not a whole lot. There's like a mix of bearish and whales over here. We have 1.4 million 400 call. Thief. My cats are just meowing. 1.4 million call, right, for January 16th, 2026. But the one that's interesting, the one that kind of caught my eye, probably the most interesting one of the day, was this one down here. Let me see if I can quickly find it. It shouldn't be too far down. This one here. 5 million, right? And this is interesting. It's a March 15th, just 2 weeks away, right? It's a 200 call, sell. It's a covered call, essentially. It could be a naked call for all we know, but whatever. We'll assume it's a covered call, right? But nonetheless, it's a sold call. 5 million in premium for, again, 200 for March 15th. And they did it when Tesla was at 204.35. And Tesla's obviously well below that now. So far, that was the right call, right? So this whale that has this many shares, it's quite a lot of shares to do this, 5.5K, right? Which is the size of the options, of course. So this whale has quite a lot of shares to do this. 5 million premium. So they think that Tesla will essentially either close below 200 by March 15th, in which case they just keep their shares. Maybe they don't want to sell their shares for whatever reason, for maybe tax purposes, who knows, right? But they think it'll either close below 200 or they think it'll be closing relatively close to 200, but they're willing to sell their shares essentially and just take that premium for what it's worth, because that's essentially what they expect. So we'll see. But that's probably the one that really, caught my eye, I would say, throughout the day as well. So Yeah, the one thing I'm also looking at is this, right? So the market is just rocketing, right? The market is just on an absolute rocketing spree. I'll take a look at it here, right? Just completely rocketing, but it is getting tighter up here. So that's A, right? Number one. But as we're constantly going higher, higher, higher. So for instance, from here, as we're going higher, 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 what is the RSI doing? It's just constantly making lower highs over and over and over as the market is just ripping, absolutely ripping. Same exact thing on SPY as the market from here is just ripping, 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 ripping. So far, we're setting also lower highs constantly. So that's a little concerning. I'm not going to lie. I'm not necessarily excited to see that. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to go ahead and short the market and all in, puts on SPY and QQQ or anything like that. That's ridiculous. But the reason I bring this up is because once this market does correct, will that affect Tesla? Who knows, right? It may not. Maybe that's what causes Tesla to trigger this bear flag and move down while the market potentially corrects, maybe somewhat soon. That is a possibility. And that's why you have to keep that in mind, right? That is always a possibility. So just figured I'd share that. That is a little concerning right now. The VIX is at a spot to bounce right here. You can see it's bounced at this red line every single time. I mean, we're pretty much right there right now. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. That's the one thing that's kind of holding me back right now because, again, Tesla's just consolidating. Until I see it break at least at 205.5, I'm not really interested in going into a pure shares long position. At the moment, I'm just selling cash secured puts and just raking in the premium, like I said, while we chop. But like I'm not willing to go much longer than that, at least right now as it stands and how the market looks. Personally, just me personally, right? But that's kind of what I'm seeing right now, ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. We're in a bit of an interesting situation. I think we're going to get a pretty decisive move coming up, hopefully next week. And it can also depend on how the market decides to, respond as well. And if it decides to finally break down from these, potentially scary looking situations. I mean, the market's still technically bullish, but it's also pretty darn overextended. So we'll see how this affects Tesla, if it affects Tesla, how this all plays out. But as of right now, I'd still be just pretty much patiently waiting for a break of one of these two levels to determine at least a short-term movement to, again, if we break the top side level, I think at the very least we'll come up to about 220s. That wouldn't surprise me. And if we break down below 198, I think at the very least we'll come back down to the 180s. I really think that's a very real possibility, if not making our lower low back down to the 160s even. 170s, 160s also wouldn't completely and utterly shock me. But with all that being said and done, thank you so much for watching. Like I said, literally days ago, just a patience game. It's a scalper's market, option seller's market. It's a patience game. Just gotta let the market decide for you. No reason to think you're smarter and decide for it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on Monday. Peace.